And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Flying weather for Tuesday morning showing solid IFR for the Bering Sea, the Aleutians, up to the south side of the Alaska Peninsula, and also pushing inland quite a fair distance here into the western interior, mostly over the Yukon Delta, up to the lower river valley areas, also for Bristol Bay, but improving conditions as you head both east and to the north, with a little bit of IFR for the eastern Arctic coast, and not too bad here for the southeast coast, mostly VFR. For the afternoon, VFR for the Panhandle, Gulf of Alaska, at least the eastern Gulf there to about Yakutat. Marginal VFR, some IFR here, south central Alaska, Kenai Peninsula, back to VFR, Cook Inlet to Kodiak Island, Kamishak Bay area. Also areas over the east side here, north of the Alaska Range. You can see marginal VFR from the central interior out to Kotzebue Sound, Norton Bay and Norton Sound there, with the western Arctic coast. VFR, North Slope, another nice day tomorrow. Marginal VFR areas of the eastern Arctic coast. No change out to the west, just solid IFR out here for the Bering Sea, the Aleutians, and now right up to around Sitkinak. And then for the Wednesday morning time frame, we're looking at IFR along the Alaska Range here, as well as western Prince William Sound and portions of the North Gulf Coast. Also another band here along and just south of the Brooks Range, and more up there on the eastern Arctic coast, and some IFR down into the northern Seward Peninsula there and the Bering Strait. Otherwise, a little bit of improvement out here with IFR breaking up out over the Bering Sea, but still pretty well entrenched here. Kuskokwim Delta into Bristol Bay, the Alaska Peninsula, and all of the Aleutians. And then for the afternoon, marginal VFR edging toward the southeast coast, but staying offshore for the most part. And another VFR day there, and conditions still better north of the Alaska Range until you get up toward the Brooks Range, but then back to VFR for the North Slope. IFR, Prince William Sound over to Yakutat, Resurrection Bay area. Marginal for Kodiak Island, western interior, marginal VFR, and the IFR continues to dissipate out over the Bering Sea with actually some VFR showing up here over the western Aleutians. Moving on to the past maps, first up in the Brooks Range, Anatuvik and Adigan look pretty marginal at times for the day Tuesday. Lake Clark and Merrill, marginal VFR as well, and marginal for Rainy. Isabel, marginal VFR. And for the Mintasta, marginal VFR on the southern entrance, otherwise VFR. For Tanita, marginal VFR. And Portage, IFR. Chilkoot and White, VFR. Freezing levels for tomorrow, 6,000 feet here over the southeast coast, and 5,000 to 6,000 feet over much of the interior here. A little warmer out toward the southwest, 6,000 to 10,000 feet there, with 12,000 feet up over the eastern Aleutians. And next graphic here, the icing. There we go. Kind of an area of elevated icing threats here over the central interior. Could be some isolated moderate rime icing here from the Brooks Range right on down into northern Cook Inlet, northern Kuskokwim Valley, back out toward the Nulato Hills. And three batches of icing here. One slipping eastward there, just catching Sitkinak Island, and another one for the Fox Islands, and yet a third one there for the Adak-Atka area. This area down here is staying south of the Panhandle as it slips off to the east-southeast. And the jet stream here, good northwest flow is going to push that right onto the southeast there as it follows the upper level low farther to the south. Otherwise, pretty good winds coming up and over a flat ridge here well south of Kodiak Island. 115 to 30 knots in the Aleutians coming into the southern interior and then picking back up to 125 knots there in the Gulf of Alaska. 9,000 feet west-southwest, give or take there, about 30 knots from the central interior back in toward Kuskokwim Bay, and 55 knot westerlies here crossing the Alaska Peninsula just southwest of Kodiak Island. Stronger winds just south of the Aleutian chain, and pretty light here for the Panhandle, Gulf of Alaska, and at 3,000 feet, light winds from the Arctic Ocean here right on down into the Gulf under weak high pressure there. Light variable winds for the Panhandle. Not too much in the way of wind out over the Bering Sea and the Aleutians. Actually, the Alaska Peninsula Aleutian Range area south up to 30 knots. Otherwise, a 55-knot wind south of the peninsula. Then some northerlies out there over the western Aleutians up to 35 knots. Turbulence, possible isolated moderate turbulence here. Southwest Kodiak Island, Alaska Peninsula to the eastern Aleutians, as well as out over toward Amchitka and Kiska Islands. Pretty smooth elsewhere.